So in 2008, I started an MBA program at the University of Maryland, the Smith School. It took 5 years to complete. It cost $100,000 that I had to pay out of pocket cash because loans or scholarships were not an option for me. It was still easier than what I did with my undergrad. The 2 years at Maryland, $14,000 that I paid as a kid was by far the hardest thing I ever did. But the MBA wasn't easy. It was just easier. I think one of the problems that I have with my faith is that in a lot of ways, I am like an immature little child where I fantastically believe that God can do the impossible, even if I'm aware that something's impossible. And during the program, I got this crazy idea. It's a book called The Pursuit of Happiness by Chris Gardner. He names various chapters. This part of my life I call being stupid. This part of my life I call running. The book concludes with him getting the job of his dreams, and he calls that part of his life, that little part of his life, happiness. And so I decided that as I'm in the MBA program, when I complete it, I'm going to get a really great job. And once I have that job, I'm going to be happy. That's going to be my path to happiness. After I graduated, I started looking for a job. Completely irrational. I'm an illegal alien. I can't work here. And through the work of personal training, I had met a lot of influential people in the DC area. Not a majority. There's actually countless influential people in DC, but it was a significant amount. And I used every source in my network over the course of 2 years to knock on every door, to check on every possibility, to get hired in a job suitable for someone who had an MBA. And within the first year of my job search, I'm actually going to explain this real quick. I did a TEDx in 2017, and because I named one of the things that I was doing at the time to help people was I was inviting wounded veterans from a military hospital in Bethesda, Maryland, to have free jiu-jitsu lessons at the academy where I taught. That was a way of me serving, but I named the hospital, even though it should be pretty clear what hospital it is. When I named the hospital, they edited that part of my TEDx from the one you see on YouTube. So I'm going to take that lesson and not name this place, but a year after I had graduated, a prestigious country club in the DMV area had approached me about running their fitness center. I didn't even consider it. I didn't want to work in that industry anymore. I had done that. I went to get an MBA. I wanted to use the degree that I had earned. And so I turned down a 6-figure job without even thinking about it. What I really wanted to do was work in financial literacy, which in DC is a pretty good place to find companies that do that, but no one could hire me. So a second year goes by, and at this point, I have turned over every rock. At this point, I am exhausted from 5 years of going to school and then 2 years of trying to get a job. And I felt completely humbled. And that same job came around again. The person that had taken it a year later walked away. And the second the opportunity came up, I went to that place. I got hired. And I felt like, okay, God, this is you humbling me. This is you telling me this is where you want me to be. When I get hired, the HR person tells me, listen, we just changed our onboarding process. And you're going to be the first person to go through our new onboarding process. Would you mind waiting 30 days for us to bring you on board? And they give me the paperwork of their new process, and they've hired a third party to do their onboarding. And their language reads large corporation solutions for small businesses. And I'm reading through the package, and my heart sinks because along with everything in there, there's a section for E-Verify. And I knew that if I'd taken the job in 2014, I would have been grandfathered in. I wouldn't have gone through all this process, and I would have been able to work at that place and had that job. But I had 30 days. At this time in my life, my faith was unbelievable. I actually was preaching sermons. I had recently preached the sermon around the time I got hired, called The Tale of the Three Trees, which I'll put a link on the description of this video, because like I said, it was a really popular sermon. But my faith was unbelievable, and when I read the Bible, I read things like when Jesus said, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can tell a mountain to throw itself into the ocean and it will. So with my 30 days, I got ready for my onboarding process. And when I went to the onboarding, I knew there was no question, there was no doubt. I had the faith of a mountain that God was going to give me a miracle, that he was going to make sure that I got this job that I had earned, and that despite any realities, God was just going to give me that miracle. And I remember sitting in the parking lot before I went into the onboarding at the facility, and I started praying, and I said, God, if you don't want me to realize any of my hopes and dreams, okay, I can walk away from that. God, if you don't want me to be a father, I don't understand. I think I'd be amazing as a dad, but you don't want that, okay. If you don't ever want me to get married and share my life with somebody, I can live with that too. Just give me this job, God. Give me this job, and I promise you, I will come to this place for the next 30 years, and I will hide here, and I will not bother anyone, make any noise. I will just come here and hide. And I walked in, and I knew I was going to get a miracle. And it always makes me laugh because there was no real drama. Within the first couple minutes of the onboarding process, I got red flagged by my social security number, and that poor woman, she's looking at my paperwork. She's like, God, it looks perfect. I don't understand what the issue is. And inside, I'm like, it does look perfect, but I know what the issue is. So I found a way to excuse myself from that. I left the facility, and by the time I got to my car, I had broken. I was so exhausted. And honestly, I wasn't sad. And if you're watching this, don't be sad for me, because I was pissed. I was furious. And I called my brother to tell him what happened. And again, I wonder how much of this is my fault, because who I became as a person and who I am is someone who really believes in like honor and doing what is right, or what I believe is right. And for me, trying to honor God and what the Bible reads was so critical. And through the decades, I've had many opportunities to do what a lot of immigrants do, undocumented immigrants do, and that is work the system. Had a number of women offer to marry me either for money or just to help me with my papers. And I've always held the belief that that was wrong, that I needed to marry for love, that that's what God wanted. And when I'm talking to my brother, he's kind of like, look, man, you need to start forgetting this, getting over this, and just do what everybody else does. And how I reacted was, I looked up to the sky, and I asked God, is this funny to you? Are you having fun? Are you enjoying laughing at me? And I decided in that moment that God was done mocking me, that God was done using me for his own amusement. And again, I wasn't sad. I was heartbroken, but more than anything, I was just exhausted and I was furious. And I'm going to leave it here because it's already run longer than I wanted to. The only other thing that I wanted to share about this was that obviously things have worked out because I'm still here. I wouldn't be making this video if my anger had overcome. But the one thing that I've never been able to reconcile, or I'm still trying to reconcile, is that biblical principle of Jesus saying, if you believe, it will be done. And when that didn't happen for me, I still don't know how to reconcile that. I'm still working through that. But I'll get back to this part of the story next week. Thank you again for listening. Thank you for doing this journey with me.